Hello, Wellness Warriors. Today, it's going to all be about you. So these are the questions that you've been struggling to answer. And I want to let you in on a little something before I jump into answering your questions. And the thing I want to let you in on is that our biggest mistake make millions for food companies, or all companies actually, but food companies is our pain point, but all companies make money off of our mistakes. So the solution to our poor health is to understand what we're doing that opens the door so that companies can profit off of our pain. So if we stop that behavior, then they're going to not be able to profit off of us, which of course is what we all want. This correction that I'm talking about, it starts with us not wanting to feel bad. That's the first mistake that we make that we need to correct, because if we continue to walk through the world wanting immediate relief from our problems, then it's much too easy for us to self-soothe with food. And I know that because one of the things I see all over YouTube are these videos about keto stalls and people complaining they're in a stall. And I've talked to people talking about their being in the stall. And you can see, that's 3 scrolls. And there were so many more. Every keto channel has a video about us stalling. And there are so many videos about this because, first of all, we don't trust the process. If you're doing keto, it's going to take a while before you're going to be in a position where you're at your healthy weight, feeling amazing, and able to do all the things that you want to do. And we don't give ourselves enough time. And so therefore, there's all these videos talking about people being in stalls. But the other issue is that we make mistakes. Like we actually do the wrong thing and cause. So, for example, mistakes that I've made. Back in my history, weighing myself like every other day, every few days. Some people weigh themselves daily, expecting to step on the scale and see immediate weight loss. That's not how this works. Like the best of us, we're going to have a gradual decrease in weight because that's what, right? The other mistake is that we're starting a diet today with the goal of being at our goal weight just 2 months from now. We need to get into that bikini before the end of summer, or that new outfit for Christmas that's just around the corner. And we don't leave ourselves enough time to actually do what we need to do to get into a healthier place. And then, of course, if we don't see movement, we're upset. And we're complaining, and we're more willing to do the wrong behavior. We want problems to go away immediately with the least possible convenience to us. And I'm trying to get you to see that's a mistake, because here's the thing, Wellness Warrior. Companies are willing to wait. And it's easy for them to wait because the conditions for their success is so strong, right? Like the situation is set up, right? So that the standard diet plays in their favor, right? Because we're going to eat those carbohydrates that the standard diet tells us to eat. And it's going to reinforce our carb addiction. And life is hard. So relationships are hard. Most of us have jobs that are either frustrating or difficult, or both, with people that are around us that we don't necessarily get along with, right? Parenting is hard, especially in today's society where you have all these screens and you have all this stuff. Health is constantly threatened, partially by what we eat, but partially just by the people that are smoking around us, the things that are available to us to do that are not in our best health interest, like drinking, smoking, all the things. Something is bound to go wrong cause us emotional pain, and then we end up self-soothing with junk food of some kind. So the normal diet puts crap in front of us, calling it food. So all kinds of grains and things that we weren't eating in our history, and then we feel bad and we self-soothe with junk food of some kind. Or maybe you're going to try to be good and take care of yourself with some genetically modified fruit that has, just as much sugar in it as a chocolate bar does. As long as we remain focused on never feeling sad and continue to indulge our cravings, the food companies know that they're going to make their money from us, right? They just need to wait. Back in the olden times, they used to talk about, this is a gateway to that, and that's a gateway. We don't understand that the standard diet is a gateway to junk food, and fruit is a gateway to the standard diet, is a gateway to junk food, is a gateway to highly processed food. All these things that we keep telling ourselves are so healthy are pushing us to eat the foods we know are not healthy. And then by the time we decide to lose some weight, the diet industry will be there to make their profits because company. And then don't worry, because medical's along with you, by your side along the entire process of this, right? They're just walking along beside you, letting you know that your labs look fine until they don't look fine anymore. Right? Because that's how that works. Our body is taking good care of us and doing everything it can to keep us as healthy as it can. It wants us to get out there and catch that animal and feed ourselves properly. And it's going to keep us in the best position it can until we do that. But we're not actually trying to get out there and catch that. We are taking the food that we're being given and being told this is okay to eat. And we're just eating it from the comfort of our homes. Sometimes we don't even take the time to cook it from scratch. We're just going to take it from the freezer and put it wellness warrior. Are you willing to wait to have better health? Right? Like these companies, they're willing to wait because they know at some point we're going to indulge at some point. But are you willing? Are you willing to invest the time it takes to solve the problems in your life? First of all, that work, family scenario, health, and whatever that thing is that's bothering you, coworkers that are, whatever it is, are you willing to do the time, invest the time to solve that? And are you willing to invest the months or even years in getting your health and your weight under control? Because if we're willing to wait, I know that we can outweight the companies if we start to see the positive of what happens when I focus on, right? With the new year approaching, I'm asking you to think about your long-term goal because it's so easy to just think about the fun foods that's going to be at Christmas and New Year's, and then you say, I'm going to get back on track just after New Year's, but don't forget there's Valentine's Day right there. So, okay, I'm going to do it after Valentine's, but then there's Easter and Wellness Warrior, there's a never ending trail of holidays that just one after the other. Don't forget all the birthdays that are going to happen in between that just keep us indulging and indulging and indulging. So what you need to think about, are you investing in making today the best that you can? So are you investing in the 5 minutes that's right in front of you or the 5 years that's in front of you? Because if you eat the garbage at Christmas, yes, you're going to feel good for that 5 minutes after you've eaten it, but you know that you damaged your health. Or you can plan over the next, weeks, months, years. You can plan to eat properly over the holidays, whatever holidays in front of you, so that your body can continue to heal, right? It gets to benefit of all of what you've been doing up until that holiday, and you get to maintain your good health improvements, right? That you've been struggling to do. It drives me nuts, Wellness Warriors, because I know And I remember when I was struggling to get my health into a better place. I remember how hard it was for me to do these things. And then a holiday would come along and you have one piece of cake, and the next thing you know, there's weeks going forward where you're just eating wrong. And then the next holiday shows up and eventually you give up. I don't want that for you. All right. So if you keep doing the good behavior, knowing that you're having success at the holidays, knowing that you're having success at these birthdays, and success, I mean, I keep eating on plan, and I just keep eating on plan because I can have fun with the people and I can enjoy, the whatever event we're doing. If the birthday party is at a jumping place for a little kid or at a club for an adult, I can have fun doing the activity rather than having to ingest things to have fun. And that way I get to keep my health. Right? And I'm setting myself up for 5 years, 10-year anniversary of not being addicted to garbage, to sugar, to that stuff that's driving your health down a path that you don't want it to be on. And I get to live that improved health along the way. Right? So by thinking long term, you break the cycle of yo-yo dieting. Right? You break the cycle of poor health. Right? And you break the cycle of that constant threat of health problems. Right? That we're always worried. Is this the year I'm going to hear about, the big C? Is this the year I'm going to hear about problems or diabetes or whatever? We're always afraid of being sick, but then we turn around and we eat the foods that we know are making us sick. So I had these comments, right? And the comments, so let me just read it. Okay, still a little bit too much dessert. All right, I'm able to moderate most days, and I'll have a bit of fruit and a bit of chocolate, I believe that's supposed to say, and still no higher than 30 grams of carbs a day. And the problem is still going overboard occasionally and feeling terrible the following day. Okay, I need us to understand that all of these comments that I'm going to read in this first slide are examples of sugar addiction. If I'm keeping my carbs to 30 grams, but then being out of control, and some people, I'm going to admit, some people can be in a ketogenic state with 30 grams. So that might not be the issue. It might be, but it might not be. See, for me, if I was in ketosis at 30 grams, then I wouldn't be chasing. So that's my first clue to you that maybe you're not actually in ketosis at 30 grams. You might need to bring it down. That's part one. But the other thing that I want you to think about is that if I was managing that little bit of chocolate or that little bit of fun, whatever it was, I think you said fruit, then I wouldn't be chasing. So again, I have to look at what my behavior is, because that behavior, that's what the company is waiting for to say, haha, we've got her, right? So if you're eating that little bit of chocolate or that little bit of fruit, and it goes from being a once in a while thing, which is like somebody who doesn't have any addiction going on, would be a once in a while thing, right? Maybe I'm eating a piece of chocolate every few months. Maybe I'm eating some fruit every few months, even every few weeks, whatever. I'm thinking about myself, but I haven't had chocolate in 3 years now. So, and that was me noticing that I wasn't managing it. We need to be honest with ourselves. If I'm not managing it, which is what it sounds like, then it's going to cause problems. So the question is, how often are you having fruit or chocolate? Right? Because if it's daily, you're feeding your addiction, right? Whether you have one or the other daily, that's feeding your addiction. And that could explain why you're out of control. And I also want you to think about, like, if you were a person who was drinking daily, right? You might look like you're managing because you're fine. You're able to do your stuff. But is it advisable to drink daily? First of all, like, would everybody say that? Could everybody acknowledge that's not something that you want to be in the position where every single day I'm having a drink, right? But then to take this to the next step, what happens if I have a bad day? If something goes wrong in my life, right? That's when people who drink daily end up having a bunch of drinks, right? So my guess is that if you were to back up and look at when is it that you find yourself getting out of control, it's probably when something emotional has happened in your life. And then all of a sudden you can't manage that little bit of chocolate or fruit that you were letting in. And you end up going overboard, maybe even eating things more than the fruit and chocolate. And I want to point out that that emotional something, I really want you to look at what's going on, because that emotional something does not have to be upset. It can also be emotional celebrating, right? Because we also celebrate with food. So all emotions end up leading us to the same place, which is the place where we are eating something that we said we were going to not be eating. So the second comment said, I struggle with dairy sweeteners, and that makes me overeat and gain weight. And I think the sweet taste makes me anxious and hungry, even stevia. And the third one is sugar addiction. So both of these comments are coming to us the similar idea, which is dairy doesn't necessarily taste sweet, but it has lactose sugar in it, right? Lactose. So depending on how much dairy you're having, that's going to talk about what type of dairy, right? As well. So like, am I having ice cream? That's obviously going to put me in a bad situation. But I'm assuming that if you're giving this question to me, you're not talking about that. So then we could be talking about something like you're having milk. It doesn't taste sweet, but there's a lot of, I think the typical glass of milk has like 14 grams of sugar in it. So that's a lot. So the type of dairy you're having is going to have a huge impact, and it could be putting you over your carb limit. So let's talk about something like heavy cream. Heavy cream does not have a lot of, depends on how much you have. So a tablespoon of heavy cream has 0.6 grams of carb. But if you're having half a cup, well, we've just we just created a situation, right? So it depends on how much you're having. What I want to point out though, is that what if your carb limit isn't that high, right? Like everybody's carb limit is specific to them. I know there was one doctor that I was watching, and she was talking about how she could be in ketosis at 70 grams of carbs a day. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that that was a thing. This was way back at the beginning of my journey. But at the end of the day, if you're metabolically more healthy, so you have less metabolic damage, then of course you're going to have the ability to be in a ketogenic state at a higher carb count, right? Because your body's just functioning properly, quote unquote. So that also means the flip side of the coin is true. I'm very metabolically damaged. I can't be in a ketogenic state past 18 grams of carbs. I know for sure. This I've experienced. Today, I don't know what the number is because I don't even try to touch that number anymore. But that was my story. Are you verifying, Wellness Warrior, what your story is? And so again, I'm going to point out, when you end up chasing, that's a good indication to you that that you've been kicked out of ketosis somehow, or that your sugar addiction is turned back on. Right? Another person that I'll talk about briefly is Michaela Peterson. That veg was just so inflammatory and harming her that she had to go full on carnivore to be able to get her health back. Right? Everybody has a different limit. Right? So sugar addiction, it's complex. And you need to be willing to, again, put in the time, put in the effort, right? Think long term to be able to create the story for yourself where you're healthy, so that we don't just turn around and get pulled back in by those food companies putting all this garbage food in front of us that we're still indulging somewhat, or indulging foods that are adjacent, right? And then we can get pulled back in. That's the gateway. If I indulge these things that are adjacent, so these sweet tasting flavors, that's the way I get pulled back in. There is a physical and a psychological component to being addicted. to foods, right? Well, to anything, to everything. But even that psychological component and that physical component is more complex when it comes to food than we even want to understand, right? Because when it comes to food, our body is sensitive to the taste of sugar, and there's a physical reaction as soon as we taste it, right? So our brain actually reacts. I believe that reaction is to keep us safe, right? All the evidence says that when we have that reaction, our insulin goes up, our stomach starts doing these processes to try to pass the sugar through as quickly as possible. Like all kinds of stuff happens. But unfortunately, the other thing that happens is we get a dopamine hit. Double-edged sword, right? Our body is saying, oh my goodness, get it out. But our brain is saying, ooh, party time. And I need us to understand that we need to listen to our body, because our brain is only doing that because we've created a story where we've gotten used to so much sugar. Not because it's healthy for us, but because it's what we eat 24/7. We have cereal for breakfast, we have sandwiches for lunch, and we have rice or pasta or potatoes for supper. Right? And of course, you know that if you have, thoughts, cravings, thoughts about cake and cookies and chocolate, etc., that's, you wouldn't just indulge that 24, or you would try not to indulge that 24/7. Right? But you still want it, even though you know it's not good for you. And that's the psychological pull that's happening, the same way that lots of people drink, even though they're saying they want to quit. Lots of people smoke, even though they're saying they want to quit. It's the psychological pull that's happening it's a physiological pull that's happening. But on top of it, there's the psychological, we know what that feels like. And there's an emotional, mental component, right? But when that sweet taste hits your mouth and there's no carbs in it, like a sweetener, but your body still reacts, that's the little complication that most of us are not aware of and don't think about. Again, sugar is so damaging to the body that when that taste happens, your brain is on high alert, and it's like, no. So what happens? We taste the sweet. There's no sugar there, but we taste the sweet. We end up having our body push insulin, which then plummets the sugar in our blood, right? It's like making space for the sugar that's coming in. That doesn't come, right? Your body can't tell the difference between sugar and sweeteners, right? Artificial sweeteners. So as soon as you taste sweet, it's going to do what it needs to do to keep you safe, right? So if we don't have sugar in the blood, and then our body will push us. It's going to push us to go get some food, right? You see the problem? Do you see it? It's like we are now going to be hungry, low on energy and hungry, right? And we're going to go get some to eat. Now, can I just share this little nugget with you? Food companies are aware of this cephalic response that we have to sweet taste, right? But when you look at the marketing for any diet food that's saying, oh, artificially sweetened, 0-calorie soda, 0-calorie, whatever it is, right? That's artificially sweetened, though. When you look at the marketing, they don't warn us about that, but don't be careful, because when you drink this, your body's going to tell you to go get something else to eat. As a matter of fact, I've even seen it where they have these diet sodas on sale right beside the chips that are on sale, right? You can buy them. Sometimes they're low salt chips, right, to make it healthy for you. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for you at all. 0 calories, 0 calorie tasting foods, right? They cause us to chase and overeat anyway. So you need to be careful. You need to know these bits of information, because if you don't know them, you will be fooled. I still find it challenging to dine out, particularly with friends and family The most difficult situations is when someone has cooked or baked for me, and I need to explain the role of carbohydrates in the body and how I view their food as potentially harmful. Social life is keto's biggest enemy, and surely one of the main reasons why people don't want to start. The most important thing, Wellness Warrior, that I want you to get from that comment is that that person did not cook for you. If that person had cooked for you, first of all, they would have asked you about your preferences and what kind of things can be on the menu, and then would have followed through on whatever request that you made about your preferences and what could be on your plate. So the fact that you're telling me, and I've had it happen to me, but the fact that you're telling me that you arrived there and the food wasn't edible, and now you're explaining to them why. If they had cooked for you, they would have known how you eat. So I agree. If I agree to cook for a vegetarian, which has happened to me because my daughter has friends and some of her friends are vegetarian, I do not try to force them to eat anything that they don't want to eat. I don't try to trick them into thinking that something isn't meat. That's meat. I cook some pasta with sauce, or I order pizza with just cheese, or I make the meal that they told me they are willing to eat. And I don't feel bad for making that meal for them because they're not me. So I'm going to eat my meal. They're going to eat their meal. So do not feel bad if the person either didn't ask you about what you can eat and then is trying to tell you you need to eat you don't need to eat what's there, or they didn't follow through on what you said to them, right? If you told them that you don't eat rice, and if you told them that, so I have to be careful. I have to say it. I have to say, I don't eat rice, pasta, or potatoes. What kind of side dish are you going to, will there be salad? Okay, on the salad, I don't eat croutons. Will there be croutons in there? Right? I'm that annoying person who's going to say all those things, right? Now, if this is a party, eat before you go. Make your life easy. Eat before you go. If it's a dinner party, that's a little bit more challenging. Then you need to talk about what's on the menu. Part two. If it's a dinner party where the dinner is going to last like maybe an hour, but then the rest of the party is going to be 2, 3, 4 hours, arrive after dinner. If it's the kind of dinner party where you have dinner and you leave, well, now you're in a situation, right? They either get what you're able to eat or they don't. But I wouldn't argue with them. Chances are, unless everybody's vegetarian, there's going to be some meat there. And I would just only take that if it's possible. Again, maybe the meat was cooked in a way where it's got these sweet flavors. Again, this is what happened to me, where I took the time to explain to my friend what I'm doing and how I'm eating. And believe it or not, I arrive and most of the stuff, even the meat they put maple syrup in the meat. I was just like, okay, so what did I do? I didn't eat. Right? Was it a dinner party? Yes, it was. And I didn't eat. I left the food on the plate. I pushed it around. I didn't eat. And you know what? Do I know if she felt bad or didn't feel bad? I don't care, because I'm not going to eat something that's going to ruin my health. So if you're the only guest, it's easier because there's just the two of you and you can be clear about your preferences and make sure that the person knows I'm not going to eat it. If you cook rice, I'm not going to eat it. Don't bother. Right? And if I'm the only guest and my host still decides to ignore my request, I mean, you could cook whatever side dish you want, but if you're expecting me to eat it, now we're in a problem. Right? But if you didn't even make the meat in a way that I can have it, I'm going to have serious questions about why you invited me over. Right? Because either you ignored my request or you just didn't understand what I was saying, which is, I think, the case with my friend that put maple syrup in the meat. Like, she didn't understand what I was saying. But at the end of the day, it was like, maybe the next time we eat at my place, right? Because that makes the most sense. So when people have allergies, nobody argues with them against, oh, but you can have a little bit. If you tell them that you have an allergy, they get it. And for a lot of times, for people that I don't really care to explain how I eat, I'll just say, oh yeah, I'm allergic to most things. So I don't want to take any chances on stuff that I don't know. Right. And I just say that. Right. But most people don't want to poison you. Right. They want you to be okay at the end of the night. So I feel like for people I don't know, I would just tell them I have allergies. And for people that I care about, but that can't seem to get it right, just, come to my house and I'll cook. And that way I get to eat, you get to eat, everything's fine. Because I don't care to cook. I will cook what you want. It's no problem for me. I'm just not going to eat it. So just making sure I have the quality ingredients. That's the struggle, right? So he doesn't really struggle once they're full in ketosis, OMAD fasting. The urge to eat from previous things is no more. Now I get curious and taste something. If you do that, sure, I would get dragged back, but cheat meals, etc., are what allows those slips to happen in the first place, so I don't do that. I love this comment. I just love it. That's the kind of comment that I want to see, where you just understand what's causing the problem, right? And then you make sure that you don't cause. So this person is clearly acknowledging that eating off plan is the best way to get kicked out of ketosis and start chasing again. And they're telling me that it's not advised. Now, when it comes to getting good quality ingredients, which is the only place that they're still struggling, I'm assuming that they're talking about veg without pesticides and meat without hormones and all the stuff that they feed our animals. And maybe even they're talking about animals that were fed appropriate diet. So, grass-fed, finished, that the chickens get access to whatever chickens eat, and the pigs and all the animals are getting their correct diet and not just what we've decided to feed them to make them bigger and fatter and all the things, right? So when it comes to veg, the only way that I can really be sure is to grow it myself, right? I have lots of neighbors that do that. They grow their own veg, and I don't have the energy or the time to do that. So I've just decided to minimize the amount of veg that I eat, and I just don't worry about it because I'm not eating it as much. So, the once or twice a week that I'll have an avocado. And even why did I choose avocado? There's a hard shell on the outside, so I'm kind of in my fantasy world, I can wash off the pesticides because I'm just taking what's inside. But it's not true. I mean, the stuff gets in the soil. The stuff gets everywhere. So I don't know. But I just kind of like to think that avocado is safer. I'm probably wrong. So don't quote me on anything I'm saying right now. With regards to meats, I can suggest to you that you find a farm that advertises that they treat their animals well, and that they grass finish, or feed the animal the appropriate diet. Again, like the chickens get what chickens are supposed to eat, the ducks get what ducks are supposed to eat, like that kind of thing. So that they're feeding their animals appropriately before our animals become our food. So that would be the best thing that I would suggest. So I'm OMAD, but I still struggle. I really don't know why I can't read today. I still struggle with calculating the correct amount of protein-fat ratio, and have been finding that my food tracker app doesn't always have the correct data on the meat I'm inputting, which is frustrating because it causes a stall. I eat until full, but I still worry that I'm not getting enough protein for my body's needs. So what I've learned, even if the food tracker has the right numbers for what the meat is it's supposed to be, right? Those numbers can be very off for multiple reasons. The first reason is that people who are cutting the meat up, right? There's a margin of error. So you're never going to get the exact right amount. The companies lie about how much fat is in, for example, ground meat, and all these processed meats, they lie. They leave more fat on purpose and then say that there's less fat. They do all kinds of stuff because they can make more profit, right? People don't want the fat. The fatty cuts are cheaper. The fatty ground meat is cheaper. So they want, so you're going to get more fat regardless, even if you think you're buying. So be careful with that. And then there's the matter of weighing the food before you eat it versus before you cook it versus after you cook it, and like how that changes the numbers. And like, I don't know that there's really good consensus on whether or not we should be weighing before or after. So like, to me, that's another like something. But yeah, so of course we have sometimes that some people measure by the cup, which is much less accurate than like weighing it. And that's another issue that can make it like easier to overeat, right? If you're just putting cups and so that kind of thing. So let's see. If you have carbs on your plate, that's another way that maybe this can become confusing, because you might not have enough protein because you might be filling up on the carb instead of on the protein. So if you have carb beside your meat, you're also more likely to overeat in general, which could explain like the stall/weight issue that you're talking about. And so there's lots of things to look at here. I would suggest, like what I did for myself, is I always eat meat to veg, so that if anything gets left on the plate, first of all, it's going to be veg. That's part one. But the other thing, if we go back to the beginning of the video, what I was talking about was that, what is a stall, right? Is it just because I didn't lose weight this week that I'm in a stall? Am I actually putting weight on? That's a whole other conversation. I remember Dr. Barry talking about, like, if your weight hasn't changed for 1.5, so 1.5 months, 45-ish days, that's a stall. But that doesn't mean that a stall is a bad thing either. So first of all, I just want to say a lot of these things, like a stall, my weight not changing is not necessarily a bad thing. First of all, if I'm actually eating on plan, that's where I want to start. So you're tracking protein and fat. So I'm making the big assumption you're also tracking carbs. But as I said in one of the previous comments, is your carb number 20? Maybe it's not. So you might be in a stall, or even like having a creep if you're eating 20 grams of carbs, but your number is 15 or 18 or 10, right? Like right now, I don't go past 10 because I don't want to risk that my number is lower than 18, right? And I don't have a need to eat more than 10 grams of carbs in a day, especially because I am one meal a day as well. So even if I get up to that 10 grams of carbs in a meal, it's not, at least for my body, it's not enough to push me over. But maybe for yours it is. So that's the first thing I want to say, right? Is that it's to pay attention to how much carb you're eating. Now, if you are eating the right amount of carb and you're eating to satiation, and you're still going over, or you're still stalled, and you're stalled for more than 45 days, your body could also be working on internal things. So this is the other thing that we don't often talk about. Like, we think weight loss is the most important thing, but it's not. Your body getting healthy is the most important thing. And the only way for your body to truly get healthy is for you to do all the things for long enough that your body has time to do what it needs to do for you to be healthy. It takes 7 to 10 to even 15 years, depending on the body part, to rebuild a complete one of these. So 15 years, right? Some parts, 7 years, some parts, 15 years, some parts, 10. So if I know that, if I let myself digest that piece of information, pun intended, then what I'm going to understand is that my body could be in the middle of correcting something super important, and it's just starting this process maybe, and I'm upset because I didn't lose weight. How about give myself the time to heal the things that need healing, so that it's not only about losing weight, It's about being the healthiest version of me that I can possibly be, so I can go off into my life and be happy and healthy. So, okay. Do you see where I'm going with this? Is that if you're close to your goal weight, right? And okay, so that's another problem. Your body might just be comfortable where you are, right? You might want to be 15, 20 pounds lighter, and your body's like, no, this is good. We're going to stay here. Again, your body knows what's healthy for you, knows what's good for you, is trying to keep you in a certain place. And we keep fighting our bodies, trying to tell our body that we know best, we know better. And I really want us to be careful about that, because regardless of which one it is, the safest thing that you could do if you're eating on plan, so you're eating properly, you're tracking, the carb count isn't too high, keep eating the way that you're eating, because the truth is, before you started this way of eating, right, your body was gaining, right? Week after week, month after month, year after year, your body was gaining. So being in a stall is not worse than eating off plan and then trying to force your body to do something when it might not, right? Like, so eating off plan or trying to make your body do something that it doesn't want to do right now because it has more important plans, right? Because it wants to help, to get healthy internally. You know what? Can you guys just take a moment and hit the like button? If you've made it to this part in the video, like, you guys are rock stars, and I just would like, hit the like button, because this is, and it's also for the people that gave me these comments and these questions, right? Because I couldn't even be making this video if it wasn't for you guys gave me the comments. So I want to say thank you. And this is part of the reason to comment, because I'm going to try to do this more often, because I think answering questions and going deep into my thoughts on these things is the way that everybody's going to start to see how I think and why is it I'm able to stay where I am for as long as I've been able to stay where I am, right? Going on 6 years that I've been at goal weight, which is like pretty cool. And I hope that this is valuable information for you guys also. So by this point, I hope you can see that answering these questions, right? It's like it's giving you an insider view of my brain, right? Like, this is going to help you to be long-term in your keto lifestyle, right? And it's going to help you to like push the food companies out. They only benefit from us because we're confused. We don't know how to answer these questions. We don't know how to go deep on like, why might something be happening? We're afraid to experiment because we're afraid to backslide and like, heaven forbid, I gain back 5 pounds, and we're afraid to experiment, right? But I'm not afraid to experiment. I'm not afraid to do things that I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to put on a few pounds or not, but how might I feel even if I put on a few pounds? I'm not afraid of that. Because I'm not afraid of it, then I'm actually, first of all, paying attention to what I do feel in my body, how my mental clarity is, how easily or more difficult it is for me to do stuff. It only takes one of us to fail at keto, and food companies are screaming about it from the rooftops, right? They're going, oh my gosh, did you see that, that famous YouTuber over there, she was doing so well, and now look at her 3 years later, she's back to her weight, and they're going to scream about it, right? Oh, that celebrity used to do keto, and now look at them, they've put the weight back on. You see, it doesn't work. But when there's a bunch of us, right, that are getting amazing results, right? There was that Harvard study where, and it was a few years ago, this Harvard study, I only found it recently, where they were carnivore, and everybody, 100% of everybody's over 2,000 people had improvements. That they buried that data, right, as far down as they can. Don't want you to see that. Now, you can actually check out that video. I linked it in the description below. They don't want you to see that, right? There's a financial benefit to companies when we eat their garbage, Wellness Warrior. Then we work out like it's our job with little no success that benefits other companies. Then we take medications that benefits other companies. And then we have procedures that benefits doctors and hospitals and whatever, right? All of this from the complications of eating unhealthy diet for 50 to 70 years. Like, do we see how replaceable we are to companies? Because there's always going to be the next generation of people coming in eating that unhealthy diet that we're all being told to eat for another however many years. And then another generation, and then another generation. It's just going to keep going forward and forward and forward, right? But I don't want you to see yourself as replaceable, right? Because you're not replaceable to your family. You're not replaceable to your friends. And most importantly, you're not replaceable to you, right? Like, I'm the only me that I am, that I will be, and I want to be here, right? So they're out there making hyper palatable foods on purpose. Hyper palatable is what they call, addictive food. They just call it hyper palatable because it looks better when you're writing, emails in between each other, or like if any court document, if they were to say, make this more addictive, that would look bad. But if they say, make this more hyper palatable, I know what it means. I want you to know what it means. I don't understand why they're not getting called out on that, but that's what they're doing. And they spend years and billions of dollars coming up with these secret ingredients so that whoever dares to eat their food is hooked forever. Do you see where they're willing to invest time and energy on pulling you in, on making sure that they get every penny from you that they possibly can? I'm saying all of this out loud because I want you to see your pusher clearly, and then choose to walk away from your pusher before the next tasty offering is in front of you. Because there's going to be one. There's going to be a new kind of chip, a new kind of chocolate bar, there's going to be something, a new fizzy drink. The most important thing that you're going to do is get those cravings under control. And I have a playlist in the description, and I'm going to link it at the end of this video for you. I'm going to meet you in that playlist. See you next Monday at 11:20. Talk to you soon.